Hello and welcome back to the channel for the first episode of what I am calling the One Report. Basically a news kind of style show. We'll catch up on all of the big talking points, and boy, we got a lot to get to because this past week was one of the busiest in one championship history. What better way to kick off this series? I mean, I have done some videos like this in the past where we kind of run down a few big talking points. Usually I tend to put up news videos if there's, a particularly big talking point that I want to talk about. But I thought, hey, let's put them all into one kind of longer video. So, maybe get yourself a drink, stick the kettle on. I've got myself a nice iced coffee here because it is in the early hours of Monday morning here in the UK. So we're going to chat about all of the One Championship news. And like I said, there is a lot to get to. So I won't take up too much more of your time before diving straight into it. And whilst we had One 168 this past weekend, the promotion's return to the US, the Ball Arena in Denver. We will get to running through that card in a minute because that will be the majority of this episode, as well as some other big talking points. But of course, during that show, we had a couple of big retirements that I'm going to get to first. The most notable of which being that of Demetrius Johnson, the one flyweight world champion, who of course has vacated his title in the process. Let me pull this graphic up on screen. This is the graph, well, not a graphic, the post that One Championship put up, I should say, from DJ's retirement, an emotional retirement in the cage. Strange a little bit to see DJ get that emotional. If you watch DJ for a long time, then his post-fight interviews and stuff like that are usually pretty matter of fact. The clips of him winning the UFC title for the first time versus him beating a boss on Elden Ring, all of that good stuff, right? DJ, an absolute legend of the game, of course. And we kind of knew, I think, that this was coming. I thought maybe there's a chance that he'll have one more. He did kind of say last year ahead of One Fight Night 10, that was One's first show in the US, that could be his last fight against Adriano Moraes, the trilogy fight. And I thought it made a lot of sense to go out on that fight, go out on his own terms with title defense in America. And to close off a trilogy, his first ever trilogy, first and only trilogy of his MMA career against Adriano Moraes, the only opponent to ever finish him. So it just made a lot of sense. Wait, is that true? Did Brad Pickett finish him, or did he just beat him? I think he just beat him by decision, right? That was the first time DJ had been stopped, was against Adriano Moraes in their first meeting. And let's start with a career like DJ's. Like I said, an emotional interview that was amazing to see, to be honest, to get that kind of final moment from him. I kind of always felt like DJ would just go out and he would just announce that he's retired or something like that on social media. He's not really the type to make a big deal out of these kind of things. So it was nice to actually get this moment, I think, especially in front of the fans. And obviously, he's also been inducted into the One Championship Hall of Fame, the first ever inductee into the One Championship Hall of Fame. And of course, incredibly deserving. I think that if you're having a debate of who the greatest of all time are in MMA, I feel pretty confident in that. If you were going to do a Mount Rushmore, there's four names that I think have to be in that list. That being Demetrious, John Jones, Anderson Silva, and George St. Pierre. And at least in my opinion, I don't see a case for how DJ is any lower than the second of that four. He is either, in my opinion, the GOAT, or at least second on that list, depending on where you stand on John Jones and his career, I think. And like I said, I think that depending on where you stand on John Jones's career, you can make an argument for DJ being number one. When you look at the run that he's been on, the wins he's got, I mean, probably the one of the best submissions we've ever seen in MMA. I would put it right at the top of that list because of the stakes, right? It's a UFC title fight that he did it in when he caught Ray Borg in that, what does he call it? The mighty whiz bar or something like that. Incredible submission where he suplexes him through the air and catches him in an armbar as he lands. And also one of the best knockouts in MMA from the last, decade, I think, that Adriano Moraes flying knee in the rematch. DJ for being a knockout artist, of course, has a ton of submissions in big fights, but to add that career highlight towards the end was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the Rodtang fight was also special. What a moment that was. But also, of course, his UFC career was absolutely amazing. I saw Dana said some nice things, so that was interesting. But that's whatever. That's by the by. But yeah, an incredible career. Like I said, it seems like this was coming for a while. He did kind of say in the interview in the cage, maybe you'll see me in here for a grappling match at some point. But as he stated, he's a diehard gi grappler at the moment, and isn't that interested in no gi for the time being. I think there's a chance that maybe that changes at some point, and we get to see him in some big super fights in grappling, and potentially those happen under the One Championship banner. That would be incredible to see. But what an advocate for the sport. Obviously joined on commentary as well for a little bit. I think DJ, his YouTube channel, everything he's doing over there, interviewing fighters, he's great at that. So I would love to see him do more commentary. Even if it's commentary on grappling, I think he'd be phenomenal at breaking down grappling exchanges and techniques and explaining to people, kind of doing I guess the Joe Rogan role that he does on the UFC broadcast a lot of time of explaining positions and things like that with jiu-jitsu. In particular, DJ would be phenomenal at that, and of course he loves jiu-jitsu right now, so yeah, I'm sure that he would love to do that as well. But what a retirement for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And there was another retirement as well on this card. I believe it happened the very next fight after DJ retired, that was in the co-main event. There is a graphic for this. There it is. Liam Harrison, an icon of Muay Thai. I tweeted this out the morning after this happened. I didn't actually watch this card live. I had just got back from a wedding, so I would have been falling asleep, unfortunately. So I did catch up on this card the very next day, and yeah, I tweeted this out. Liam Harrison, if you look at people who have brought eyes to Muay Thai, I don't know if there's anyone that matches up. I'm sure that there are, obviously in different parts of the world, it's different, right? The Thai superstars from over there are obviously going to bring in a lot of attention in Asia. Liam Harrison was kind of a gateway for me into watching striking, just not even just Muay Thai, which of course is what he's best known for, but kickboxing as well. And kind of getting into this scene. Of course, this happened quite late in his career, really, when he started to get, really big exposure. And of course, then, the final kind of run in One Championship. This was his first fight back in, I believe, 2 years, right? Since the Nongo fight where he got injured, and then his comeback kept getting delayed by various things. And he wanted to go out on his own terms, and that's, I think, the most important takeaway here. When you look at Liam Harrison's retirement, is that he did go out on his own terms. He went out on his shield. He got to fight one of the few legends that from his era that he was yet to fight in Sexan, and as he said himself, I'm sure people have seen the clip of him kind of walking down the the back aisles of the arena, of the ball arena in Denver, talking about his decision to lay down the gloves, and just his body can't take that kind of punishment anymore. I mean, you could see it in the fight. Liam Harrison is still incredibly fast, and he has not lost, his will and his heart at all. Still firing back after getting dropped multiple times, as we know the Hitman to do. But yeah, he just he couldn't take some of those power shots from Sexan that, as Liam said, he probably could have taken in his earlier career and carried on fighting, but not at this stage. Went out on his own terms. I think this was a good time to call it, rather than saying, let's do one more. Although he has said, this is the end of his kind of proper career, but he does want to do one more fight in the UK in boxing gloves. I imagine some kind of exhibition or something like that, just to get, a send off in front of the UK fans, which will be special. And being in the UK, I will definitely try and get to that if I can. Who knows? Maybe he'll be able to get that Floyd Mayweather fight that was supposed to happen when he was injured. That would be incredible if that's able to happen. But yeah, of course, another icon of the martial arts world retired on the same night as Demetrius Johnson. And yeah, full respect to Liam Harrison, a lovely guy and an incredible fighter who has had an undeniable impact on this sport. Now, let's get into the action from 1168. Let me see if I can find the winners graphics there. And we'll just run through the card from the bottom to the top. Starting with the first fight of the night between Sean Klimico and Johan Estupinan. This was an absolute banger to kick off the card. What a way to, announce that one is back in the US and to show the fans a little bit of Muay Thai. Because I think there was like 5 knockdowns in these 2 rounds. An incredible back and forth fight. Estupinan got dropped twice quite early by Klimico, who I thought looked really good in that first round, but Estupinan, he does leave himself open, but he's so fun to watch because he throws everything. I mean, some of those, like the jabs and the straights that were coming behind them, it was like he was throwing his whole body into them. It was a crazy fight whilst it lasted, and then Estupinan just keeps pouring on the pressure and hurting Klimico with each shot, or Climaco, I need to get used to saying. I'm actually going to be interviewing. I don't know if this video might be out by the time, I don't know which, but I'm going to be interviewing Sean's brother, who is a MMA fighter, who is going to be fighting in LFA very soon. So I need to get used to saying that surname before I chat to him. I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a talk about this fight. I'm not sure whether Mark was in his corner. I'm not too sure, but I will find that out very shortly. The next fight of the night was Jojo Ghazali taking on Jose Cruz. Yeah, I thought Ghazali looked better in this fight than he did last time out against Nguyen Turan doing that at 1167, which of course was a bit of a shock loss for Ghazali. I thought that he was just too over aggressive in that fight. Didn't do a great job of cutting his opponent off, which he admitted as well. And was just a bit, just overzealous in trying to pull the pressure on his opponent, who wasn't really going anywhere. Needed to be a little bit smarter and realize that he wasn't going to be able to bully this guy around the ring as well as he thought he would, or around the circle, I should say. And against Jose Cruz, he still came out incredibly aggressive, right? You got to expect that from Ghazali. That's what he does. That's his game. Tons of output, tons of pressure. But he got tagged a few times in this fight. And I think that in a way kind of helped him to settle down and go, all right, I'm not going to be able to blow this guy away. Let me just pick my shots a little bit better, pick my time. And then, he picked the right time at the end of the round to unleash a combination, caught him with a left hook, I believe it was. I think it was partially blocked by Cruz as well, but just didn't matter. The power that Ghazali has sent Cruz crashing down to the canvas. Literally, I think he hit his head on the floor and didn't get up in time to make the refs count, and that was it. Buzzer beat a knockout for Ghazali, a really important win for him. And yeah, I think that there was, whilst he hasn't gone away and suddenly become like a point fighter or anything, he's still very much super aggressive, high output, in your face from the very start. But there was a couple of little signs here and there, I think, that showed that he has learned some lessons from that last defeat last time out. Then we had Adrian Lee taking on Nicholas Cornejo. A quite similar performance from Adrian Lee, apart from the fact that he was able to get the submission in the first round this time out. He got the submission in the second round at 1167, but just comes out so aggressive. I guess this is kind of the trait that we're going to, start to know Adrian Lee by, that he's the most aggressive of the Lee siblings. He just comes out like a bull at a gate and puts pressure on people, immediately starts landing shots, and then goes for the takedown, which obviously was well disguised by the strikes that he was landing. And just, he has a couple of attempts at the rear naked choke and then eventually gets it in the first round. I'm happy to see Adrian Lee in these fights. It does seem like he's building. I thought that Cornejo, whilst I still thought Adrian Lee would come through this fight, was a good little step up in terms of the experience that he had. So not mad at it. Quite a similar performance from the first time that we saw him. So not tons to write home about, but a good little step, I think, for Adrian Lee, who is a very, very exciting prospect in that lightweight division. Then in the welterweight division, I believe it was, you had Hiroyuki Tetsuka taking on Izzy Fitikefu. Fitikefu got the win here. I thought Tetsuka was going to take the win here, so I was quite surprised. Tetsuka's been on an unbelievable run. I think it was five fights, 5 wins, 5 finishes this year. Or at least, on this winning streak. Maybe not this year. It can't be this year. It was last year as well. But Fitikefu was just able to kind of smother him. The first round, Tetsuka had a little bit more time, but wasn't really able to do a whole lot with it. And then, like I said, Fitikefu was just able to smother him and keep hold of him for a lot of this fight. It wasn't the best of fights. I think that this fight, and the next one, whilst I would say the next one was actually better and was quite a fun MMA fight. These two fights, going the distance, a lot of grappling. Did kind of slow the pace down quite a bit, I think. But that's only because the fights either side of them were action packed. So I don't think they were necessarily, this wasn't, worst fight of the year or anything like that. It was fine, but it was just a very much a changing momentum considering what we had just had and what we would go on to have. As I mentioned, Elise Anderson versus Victoria Souza, I thought was quite a fun fight. Victoria Souza got the win by unanimous decision, and some of the grappling exchanges, that was predominantly where this fight took place, was these two women exchanging submission attempts actually for a lot of it. And I enjoyed those scrambles and those submission attempts. I had fun watching this one. Elise Anderson nearly got the tap a couple of times. She locked up some really nice submissions actually. I believe it was the first round where she got that triangle and then transitioned to the armbar. Wasn't able to get the tap, but it was a lot of fun. And Souza got the win, who continues to build off of that submission win over Itsuki Hirata last time out. I thought she was going to get Elise in a guillotine, kind of like she got Itsuki in, but she wasn't able to secure it. But a really good win for Victoria Souza, who definitely seems to have turned a corner. Be interesting to see where she goes from here. There are a couple of contenders at atomweight that I think could be a good little step up for her next time out. So we'll see how that goes. Then you had a very, very fun fight between John Lineker and Asa Tempao. John Lineker, of course, former one bantamweight MMA world champion, making his Muay Thai debut here. And, you can have as much experience as you want in Muay Thai, but coming up against John Lineker, who I said this in the preview on this channel, that John Lineker should do quite well in Muay Thai because whilst his striking game is quite limited, right? He is essentially a boxer who competes in MMA. He doesn't need to change his approach at all for Muay Thai. Like he's still like in MMA, people always try and get away from him. And all right, maybe sometimes they threaten with takedowns and stuff like that, but he is very good at defending those for the most part. But it's the same deal in Muay Thai. People are going to throw kicks at him. People are going to throw jabs and try and circle away. His job is just to walk them down and land his power shots. And that's exactly what he was able to do against Asa Tempao, who wasn't able to keep his movement up enough to stay away from John Lineker, who did quite a good job of cutting off the cage, I think. Maybe it'd be different if it was in a ring, but I imagine John Lineker would have done the same either way. And Asa just wasn't able to, really threaten him. If you look at the way that Fabricio Andrade was able to kind of back Lineker up at points, and his striking is just so good that John Lineker was getting tagged every time he tried to get near him. That wasn't really the case here. Asa wasn't really able to do enough, I think, to be a deterrent to John Lineker's pressure. Eventually, he lands that shot that hurts Asa Tempao. Asa Tempao's got a hell of a chin. He took some bombs from John Lineker before was eventually finished in the second round. A quintessential John Lineker performance that was a lot of fun to watch. And, who knows? Maybe he'll continue to compete in Muay Thai. And we'll see John Lineker on a Friday Fights card maybe sometime soon. Then you had Ong La and Sang, the former champion, taking on the undefeated Shamil Erdogan at middleweight. Obviously, middleweight in one championship, 205 pounds. But Shamil got the win here, second round TKO. I thought he looked very good in this fight. It was a smart strategy. He kind of did exactly what he said he would do, which was to wrestle Ong La early and then utilize a bit more of his striking later on, although he did obviously get a takedown in the second, which led to him getting the finish via ground and pound. But just seemed to tire Ong La out in that first round, wrap him up and not let him do too much. Just, wear on him. And then that second round, Ong La looked like he'd slowed down quite considerably. And Shamil just took over. Obviously, a big step up for Shamil as well, I would say, and he looked very good. Interesting to see where he goes from here, whether there's another fight for him at middleweight or whether he just waits for Anatoly Malakin. I think I would like to see him have one more, but I don't really know who else there is for him to fight in this division other than Anatoly. Now he's beaten Ong La, who has been beating a lot of the middleweight contenders for a long time now. So who knows, right? I wouldn't have a pick for who he should fight next, but I would like to see him fight someone else before he fights Anatoly Malakin, which is a really interesting matchup, I think, because Shamil, obviously, good wrestling background. Good is probably an understatement. Very good wrestling background. Has kind of taken to striking a little bit later in his career, and a very, very different style of striking to that of Anatoly Malikin, who I would say is a much more effective striker at this point in his career. I just think Anatoly will be, if he is able to make middleweight and he is able to make it safely, which he did against Renier Derrida, I just think Anatoly would be too powerful for him, too fast, too big. Yeah, I haven't seen a ton from Shamil yet to make me think that he can beat Malikin, even with Malikin making that cut to middleweight after fighting at heavyweight in a few months. But we'll see what happens. Co-main event, Liam Harrison versus Sexan, as advertised, as picked out as the best fight on this card from myself. This was an absolute banger whilst it lasted. As I said at the start of this video, I thought Liam looked really, really good, really fast. His counters were on point. It was literally just, he took that one shot that hurt him, and wasn't able to properly recover. He said when he spoke about wanting to do, maybe like a fight in boxing gloves before he retires, that he wants to kind of showcase a little bit more of his technique and stuff like that, rather than, going into a bit of a firefight with Sexan like he did. But up until that point where it turned into a firefight, I thought Liam looked fantastic and he was doing really, really well. But yeah, we've already kind of spoken about this one, so I don't know what else there is to say. But long live the career of the Hitman, and what a win for Sexan as well. So we'll see how long he carries on for as well. Of course, another legend of the game. And then in the main event, just a remarkable performance from Superlek. Look at this winning streak that he's on right now. Some of the names he's beating Rodtang in an unbelievable fight, beating Takeru in a very, really good fight as well. And then stopping Jonathan Haggerty in under a minute with a perfectly timed elbow. Haggerty kind of spoke about this and said he thought he had Superlek hurt and was too aggressive. And Superlek just timed it perfectly, caught him as he was coming in, dropped Haggerty, and he couldn't continue. Yeah, I mean, we know Superlek is an unbelievable technician. Of course, his timing and his accuracy is fantastic. And we saw his elbows against Rodtang in particular were very, very effective. But this was another level of destructive from him. I can't remember seeing him be just like this efficient, to land that one elbow and close the show against a guy like Haggerty. And of course, now he's a 2-sport and 2-weight world champion. Yeah, a phenomenal performance from the kicking machine, who continues to be right in that conversation for being the best pound-for-pound striker in the world right now. I mean, yeah, look at these recent wins. Like I said, Rodtang, Takeru, Kongtorni, and then Haggerty in under a minute. So we'll see what happens from here. I'll be interested. I guess they do Superlek Nico Carrillo next, which will be fascinating. I made the case in the preview of this of how Superlek's technical ability and stuff, he's not going to be able to bully Haggerty around because he's going to be the bigger, more powerful man. It's all about the bigger, more powerful man. That is Nico Carrillo. So interesting to see. I think him and Superlek is a fantastic clash of styles that I would love to see. So I hope that's next. For Haggerty, wouldn't I imagine he'll take some time off before jumping back in there. There's some very, very good fights for him still in this division. Of course, he still obviously has the bantamweight kickboxing title, so maybe he just waits out for a little bit longer and then defends that belt against. We've got some big kickboxing matches coming up. Actually, we've got Hiroki Akimoto taking on Elias Denahachi, 2 former champs. So potentially the winner of that fight goes on to fight Haggerty. Potentially Wei Ray, who of course beat Hiroki Akimoto on his one debut. We'll see what happens with either of these guys, but I'll take a little bit of a break right now, and then we will be back in just a moment to talk about some other huge talking points from this past week. Okay, a little bit of a jump cut there. I'm trying not to do too much editing on these because I want it to be more of a podcast feel. Like I said, grab yourself a drink, maybe you're doing some work at the same time, whatever it is. That's what I tend to do when catching up on all the action that I've maybe missed or whatever. So, you don't have to do it, but do what you want. I can't tell you what to do. We've got some more talking points to get to. Like I said, it was an incredibly busy week for One Championship. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a fight that didn't happen on this card that was supposed to, that being Mikey Musumeci versus Cade Ruotolo, a grappling contest that I was very excited for. that didn't end up happening. As I'm sure a lot of people will know, I said this in the preview for this card as well. Cade Ruotolo was dealing with some injuries from his CJI win, so he pulled out. And then we got the announcement that Mikey would be defending his flyweight title. The name of the opponent escapes me now, but he won the IBJJF, was it this year? I've forgotten. But regardless, that fight didn't happen. So immediately when I saw that fight was put together, I was like, wow, that's a lot, because Mikey was planning to compete at lightweight against Cade, and now he's going to go back to defend his flyweight title. That's a lot of weight categories to get through to make this happen. And from all accounts, from One Championship's point of view, this was something that Mikey pushed for. He wanted to defend his flyweight title, and at the time was kind of in between flyweight and lightweight. So I guess would have come in undersized for the Cade matchup, which is not surprising considering he had to go up a couple of weight classes. But the matchup didn't end up happening. It was offered to Mikey as a catch weight, which he declined. And then obviously this kind of came out after the fact. Let me pull this up on screen. Mikey dealing with some health issues. He says here in an Instagram post, I just want to thank everyone for the messages and support. I've been in the hospital since early this morning. I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to say that. We're just going to move on from that, which means I had a tear in my lung Wednesday, I believe, when I was cutting weight. He got some air into his chest and then his neck. This is a life-threatening condition, and if I would have competed, I could have died, the doctor told me. So first I was upset. Now I'm full of gratitude to be alive and that I didn't keep pushing. So yeah, it sounds like Mikey has been kind of put through the ringer this past week. The immediate thought process, because I did see some people criticizing him when he wasn't able to make the flyweight weight limit and hydration. The conversation is, well, whose decision was it to do this at flyweight? If it was Mikey's decision, then yeah, it was probably a bad call. He was never going to make hydration having to cut that much weight that quickly. So yeah, it wasn't the best decision, and clearly had some health impact from cutting that weight. So obviously, this isn't me criticizing Mikey too much, because I'm glad that he is okay, and that these health problems have been dealt with, and that he didn't compete under these conditions, because that could have been very bad. But at the same time, it was probably a bad call on his part, I think, to try and do this. Fair play to him for trying to do it, but yeah, maybe not the best decision. And who knows what goes from here. I still think that Musumeci versus Cade should happen in the future. Probably unlikely for that Atlanta card. Atlanta. I always say Atalanta. If you're a football fan, you'll understand. But we'll see. Like I said, I still want to see Mikey versus Cade. I hope that gets rebooked. I can't see it being on Atlanta, but maybe sometime early next year, perhaps. And I'm sure Mikey will take some time off to make sure that when he does return, he is fully healed and, can compete safely at flyweight. Another big piece of news. I'm going to switch the tab over here, because we had a big fight announcement ahead of this event, and that is Takeru's new opponent. As I'm sure a lot of people saw, Black Panther was supposed to be his opponent on this One Friday Fights 81 card at Lumpini. Black Panther got injured. He posted a statement about it, I believe, on Instagram or something like that. You can check out, basically being advised not to take this fight through doctors and things like that. So instead, he's going to be fighting. I'm going to butcher the name, so I do apologize. Tant. I'm going to say it's Tantzin or Tantzin, who I think is a little bit of an underwhelming replacement, and by little bit, I mean quite a bit. I imagined that when Black Panther pulled out, they would find someone else from the kind of Friday fights scene to step in here. And whilst I wasn't expecting, them to go, it's Superlek or whatever, although I'm sure Superlek would have taken that. I think it should have been someone who's got some wins on the Friday Fight Series, the same caliber of opponent as Black Panther. And that's not to say that this new opponent isn't viable. I don't know that much about him. I know that he comes from a left-way background, so you'd imagine he's going to be pretty tough. But I didn't expect Black Panther to be that tough of an out for Takeru, and I don't think that this guy is going to pose a bigger threat than Black Panther. So I would say that if you had criticisms about Takeru fighting on this card against Black Panther in the first place, then these criticisms are probably... I didn't have as much of a problem. It always felt like this fight was going to be a stopgap fight until they can do the Rodtang fight. You don't want to jeopardize Takeru losing by putting him in there against a super tough opponent, although I think he could have beaten a lot of the guys on Friday fights, to be honest. So yeah, underwhelming replacement, I think, especially when you consider Mikey Musumeci pulled out of the fight. Well, Cade pulled out of the fight with Mikey, and they were able to go and get, I think it was IBJJF. If it wasn't, it was something close to that. I'm pretty sure he won IBJJF this year. They're able to go and get an opponent of that caliber on a few days' notice. And we've had to bring in a left-way guy to fight Takeru. And that fight doesn't even happen for another couple of weeks. I think it's an underwhelming replacement. I think it'll be a fun fight. This guy's probably going to be tough and going to be able to take Takeru's damage, but I just don't think it's going to be that competitive, unfortunately. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is there someone that you think should have been in this fight instead? And finally, the last thing to get to is a story that I didn't expect to be covering, and it has become a very big deal. Because I don't think it's particularly going anywhere anytime soon. And that is Karate Combat versus One Championship. So if you didn't know, I'm sure you will know, but Karate Combat have got an event coming up in Singapore, I believe it is. Is it Singapore? Yeah, Singapore in just a couple of weeks. September 18th, is it? Let me just look. Karate Combat 49. Yeah, September 18th in Singapore. And I don't know whether this is there's multiple ways you can look at this. You can look at this as it's a Karate Combat wannabe fighters first. And so with that reputation that they want to have, they're choosing to do this because they think that one are having a negative impact on the careers of the fighters on their roster, and also probably the careers of people who aren't on their roster. You could look at it as one, our competition. They are now entering, Singapore, which is where One Championship is, this is One Championship's area, right? Whilst, they're predominantly now based out of Lumpini Stadium in Thailand. Of course, Singapore has been a very important location for One Championship over the years, so you could see it as they're going into direct competition with One Championship now. Obviously, a lot of Karate Combat events, they do events all over the place, but I think most people associate them still with being an American promotion. So you could look at it that way. You could also look at it as this is a very good way to generate interest. It's generated a lot of headlines, and I, for one, even though I'm a fan of Karate Combat, I really enjoy watching the shows. I enjoy the production and things like that. I think they do a very good job. It's a very unique show, and I'm enjoying it. I'm a fan. I didn't know they were doing an event in Singapore, and because of this, I mean, don't get me wrong, it is kind of my job to keep up with things like this, so it's not necessarily a surprise that I know about this now, but I know about the Singapore event. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that know about, or maybe don't even know about the Singapore event, but are probably keeping up to date with everything that's going on with Karate Combat because of this. I'll pull up Karate Combat's Instagram page here so that you guys can see some of the stuff they have been posting. That, as I posted on my own Twitter, they are not playing games. They have posted a fair bit now about One Championship. So you had this interview that President Awesome did with Michael Bisping on Bisping's Believe You Me podcast, where he spoke about, I believe he spoke about where this came from, this kind of feud, and it was to do with an event that they were hosting, which I believe was kickboxing versus Muay Thai, and they had some issues with one on that front. I mean, there's a post here about it. Yeah, there you go. So here's the background of that from Bisping's podcast. And then they posted, these are the two that I actually want to get into. So this is, how to phrase this. This is not just them saying, we're a competitor to One. This is them actively saying One are mistreating their fighters, and we're going to raise awareness of this. This is a post with Gary Tonon, of course, a One Championship fighter, a former title challenger in Gary Tonon. In One Championship, but you get the point. So it says here, Google statements from One fighters and you'll be shocked at what's going on. Over and over, top One prospects coming out and speaking against the promotion. Time to get together to bring the power back to the athletes. And there's a tweet here from Gary Tonon from just a few days ago saying, he's open to doing interviews to talk about his experiences with One Championship, his current situation, and also some of his past experiences, which I'm not too sure what he's referring to there. But then there is a second post from Marcus Buchecha Almeida, of course, a heavyweight contender in One Championship, obviously a grappling icon as well, just like Gary Tonon. Very, very credentialed elite level grapplers who, again, basically saying the same thing that it said in the last post about, he's saying that he wants to fight. I'm kind of blocking that here, aren't I? I'm still kind of blocking it, but you get the idea. Saying that he wants to be fighting and that it's not his choice to not be fighting. And then there you go. There's an Instagram post there from Buchecha saying, a lot of people are asking me lately if I retire. The answer is, of course, not the reason I'm not fighting. It's not my choice. I've been out waiting for a fight for almost 1 year, but I don't have luck getting a fight. That's the reason I'm away from the cage or the mat. The right question you should ask me is when I'm fighting again. But right now I'm asking to some people the same thing, to be more precise, 13 months. It's been 13 months of waiting to be in a situation like that. It sucks. I don't wish this to anybody. So if you want this answer, you know who to ask, and tag any at One Championship in the post. Now, again, as I said, this could be has definitely been a good way for Karate Combat to get in the headlines. This whole war with One Championship thing is getting a lot of people talking. And I do think that it's good that there is somebody talking about the fact that some of these fighters in One haven't fought a lot lately. That is no secret, right? Whether you can debate the motive behind Karate Combat being the ones that are like, we're going to expose this. This is a simple fact, right? Whether it's an issue with One, whether it's an issue with whatever the issue is, the simple fact of the matter is there are a lot of fighters in One Championship, specifically MMA fighters, who haven't fought a lot lately. I mean, look at Ong La. I mean, he just fought at 1168, but before that, it was One Fight Night 10 that he last fought. Roberto Soldic hasn't fought since One Fight Night 10. Gary Tonon fought earlier this year, right? Was it Martin Wen? He fought Martin Wen earlier this year. But again, his post wasn't to do with not being given fights, although potentially he is pushing for a fight and not being given one. I don't know that. But Buchecha hasn't fought. I don't remember which fight night card it was on where he fought Rugrug and lost, and clearly he wants to come back as well. I think that Karate Combat are going to keep mentioning this, although it will be interesting to see if they keep saying things like this after the Singapore event. And again, this isn't, this is just pure speculation across the board on everything I'm saying here. But I think One should probably answer this in some way, even if it's just speaking to some of the fighters who have spoken out here, Gary Tonon and Buchecha, and clearing the air with them and talking about when they want them to fight again. I think that is the best course of action that One can take. And we will see what happens with this, because it's developing over time. And I don't really know what to make of it right now, because we'll see how One respond. If they do respond, we'll see what happens with these fighters. And I'm sure whatever happens with these fighters, Karate Combat will be quick to mention it. So it's created a little bit of drama. It's created a little bit of intrigue. And you've got two quite high-profile fighters saying that they're not too happy with the way they're being treated right now in One Championship. And like I said, it's whether you think they're being unfairly treated or not, whether Karate Combat are doing it for this reason or that reason. The fact of the matter is Marcus Buchecha Almeida hasn't fought in 13 months, and clearly he wants to fight. And, I think that's fair. At the end of the day, I agree with that sentiment that the fighters should be being kept active, or at least being given something to do whilst they are under contract. But as I said, we will keep up to date with this and see what happens on that front. And for the time being, I think we will leave it there. There is some other big one championship news that's happened, but there has just been so much this week between 1168, between Mighty Mouse retiring, between this karate combat stuff. Let me know in the comments below what you guys make of this karate combat stuff. I'm interested to get your guys' take on this. I try, as always, as I will always do on this channel, to give you a balanced view. And so I'm sure there will be people who will be far more critical in the comments and things like that. But you know, that's what we're here to do. I'm not here to say don't have your opinion or whatever. That's what we're here to do. We're here to just chat about everything that's going on. And yeah, thank you for checking out this video. I'm going to try and put out some different kinds of content on this channel. You know, for a while we were keeping it pretty simple with just the occasional news piece, the occasional preview. Be doing some different things, maybe some different promotions as well. Who knows? Maybe a karate combat video coming soon. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, just want to do some different stuff on this channel, and I'll keep the videos coming. As always, this channel and the output on it is entirely motivated by you guys, the support that you give, suggestions, things like that, stuff that you guys want to see me talk about. So that is what we're here to do. Thank you for checking out this video. Drop a like, all the standard stuff, subscribe, everything. You know what to do. And I will see you all very, very soon. But until then, peace.